Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins. Let's chop it up. My guest today on this episode is Jim Gitney. He is an author and the CEO of Group50 Consulting, and we'll learn more about that later. Now, Jim has over 45 years of senior level experience in world-class companies, ranging from startups to Fortune 50. He founded Group50 Consulting in 2004 and has worked for over 200 companies formulating and implementing strategy. He has extensive experience in running large global operations and working with boards, business owners, and executives on developing and implementing transformative strategic initiatives, including mergers and acquisitions, integration, and lean management, which encompasses business process engineering and sustainable continuous improvement initiatives, Kaizen. He understands how to turn strategy into results. Jim, welcome to the Business Chop.
Thank you so much, Audrey. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I look forward to chopping up with you. And to get things rolling, I'm just going to ask this one simple question of you. What's the most important goal for our business?
The most important goal for a business is defined by the owners of the company. So that could be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. That could be a group, a partnership. That could be private equity. It could be a board of directors. It could be publicly traded. And every business needs to have one most important goal. Now, it's interesting because when I got my MBA and I was learning strategy in corporate companies like GE and Black & Decker and Sunbeam, it was one of these things where you can't have more than 3 to 5 strategies. And the thing that always troubled me during my career was that oftentimes those strategies weren't easily tied together.
Okay.
And they weren't easily communicated. And so with the clients that we work with, we encourage them to create one most important goal. If you're a business owner, Audrey, we are seeing the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the country, from baby boomers to new owners or to their children or to their employees, as they are retiring and getting out of their business, their legacy, right?
Right.
And each one of them has their own need, their own unique need. And so, as I was mentioning before we started the podcast, if an owner wants to move away from their business and they want to spend the rest of their time on the beach drinking pina coladas, we can build a strategy around that. But if the owner says, I still want to be involved, but I only want to do something very specific, that's going to be a different strategy.
Okay.
And it will also be different if the owner says, I just want to cash out, I want to exit. So when you have one most important goal, it's easier to communicate it to the rest of the organization. I understand as an employee or as a stakeholder in a business what it means, what it's going to mean when the most important goal is to sell the business in 5 years.
Right. So is that something that we should, as an owner, say with the team, as you mentioned, that should be part of our monthly conversation or some kind of internal communications this is what we're leading up to? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so. I believe so, because at the end of the day, what happens is people, if they don't understand what the most important goal of the business is, they don't understand how to prioritize the things they do. Right? So there have been books written about, Gen Xers and millennials wanting to feel like they're involved in something more important, a bigger picture. They want to understand that. Well, I actually don't entirely agree with that, because I'm a baby boomer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to know what I'm working for, what I'm working towards.
Yes.
And as individuals, no matter where I am in the organization, if I'm on the shop floor or I'm in customer service, or even if I'm in the C-suite,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be led. I want to know from what to what by when. And that's important. But what gets me really excited is if I'm part of the how.
Okay.
Okay. And
So,
so when you have a most important goal, I can easily communicate it to everybody. And it's much easier to help them understand how they are part of achieving that goal.
and so that becomes their purpose.
That becomes their purpose. Yeah.
Right. Within the business. That's awesome. Looking back at your bio, so with that purpose being to, the succession plan, or, we're gonna do as from an owner perspective, because that person is the driving force, behind all of it. When you talk about, let's say, for instance, if the goal is to find someone, not someone, another organization that we want to merge with or acquire, how do you keep the morale up and something like that? It's like, well, I'm working, they're going to merge it with this other company, or someone's going to buy us, and then we're going to get laid off, we're going to get fired, or so how does one keep that morale going?
So, that's a really interesting question, and it's about transparency and communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all been part of organizations where the rumor mill has overwhelmed people's thinking, right?
Yes.
And so I'm a huge fan of laying out that most important goal, and it's the way we approach it, developing that most important goal.
Mm-hmm.
So if my most important goal is growth, and one of the strategies around that growth is to acquire another company, right?
Yes.
Then I can clearly articulate that and communicate that to the rest of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
If my goal is to sell the company, to be acquired, then my strategies are to significantly improve profitability and to improve the multiple.
Yes.
Because the value of a business is a multiple of profitability, just to keep it simple, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the multiple is all about what the perceived buyer views as risk in buying this company. And we've actually done business strategies around increasing enterprise value. And so at the end of the day, it is really important that if my plan is to increase enterprise value or to sell the company, right, that I make sure that everybody understands what their role is in making that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in the business hierarchy of needs, which is outlined in my book, Strategy Realized to the Business Hierarchy of Needs, there's 29 elements, and compensation is one of those. So if I'm an owner and I have a company that today is worth 5 million and I want to sell it for 10 million, then I have lots of opportunities to identify those strategies that I need to create, and then also identify ways to compensate the people in the organization for helping me get there. Because at the end of the day, if I have something that's worth 5 million today and I sell it for 10 million tomorrow, why not share some of that gain with the people who help me add $5 million in enterprise value, right?
That's right.
And so what we do inside what we do is we create the most important goal, and we point every one of the 29 elements of the business hierarchy of needs toward that goal. That's hiring practices, succession planning, that's training and development. There's 3 levels to the business hierarchy of needs. What we've been talking about is level 1, which is creating clear business strategies and that are focused on one most important goal. But you've got level 2, which is what I call the bridge between strategy and results. Level 2 is the organization and people. I've been doing business for 45 years now, and while we have fewer people required to run most businesses, we still need people.
That's right.
And I don't, at least in my lifetime, foresee a future. It's certainly not my lifetime will we ever have businesses that are completely autonomous of people. And so sometimes we have a tendency to think more about technology and less about people inside the organization. And we need to make sure that they are part of the how. They are part of developing the how. And we need to give them the skills to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to compensate them appropriately for what we're asking them to do.
Okay.
And in my book, I talk a lot of detail about what compensation means, because it's not just salary.
Oh, get into that a little bit.
So remember I said, I want to be led, right?
Right.
No matter where I am in the organization, I want to be led. And I want to be part of the how. Now, if you make me part of the how, in my view, that's part of the compensation system.
Okay.
Okay. If I have the opportunity, if I have the opportunity for recognition, for accomplishing objectives, or meeting goals, or completing projects on time that are part of moving the business toward the most important goal, that's part of the compensation. It could be something as simple as, a dinner card for my wife and I.
Okay.
All right. It could be compensation in terms of salary. It could be compensation in terms of gain share, which is basically, if we significantly improve the performance of the business, you're going to allow me to participate in realizing some of that improvement through stock options for publicly traded companies, but it might be phantom shares for privately traded companies, or might be something as simple as a quarterly bonus based on performance.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we have to pay our employee stakeholders a fair wage based on their competencies and their role. But there are hundreds of other forms of compensation that help motivate people inside an organization.
Okay.
But the single most important one is let me be part of the how.
Yeah, I like that, because then as an individual contributor, then I'm buying into the core values of the company. I'm buying into the vision of the owners, and I get to participate in that. As I'm buying in, I'm participating. They're recognizing me for for being an asset, not just somebody to get this task done, so I can go out and make money.
Yeah, Audrey, you make a really good point, because at the end of the day, once I get through level one, alignment and accountability are part of level two, the organization, right? And until you have those two levels done, very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Right.
I have to progress through each one of the levels before I can get to self-actualization. In the business hierarchy of needs, so I took the same concept and applied it to the business hierarchy of needs. In the business hierarchy of needs, I have to get through level one, which is strategy and most important goal. Level two, which is how do I inform my organization and prepare them to implement that. And level three is implementation. So, I need to make sure that every stakeholder in the organization understands what the most important goal is and what their contribution to it is. I go as far in my book as saying that the most important goal should be the startup screen on every computer when you start your computer up in the morning. Right?
Yep. That's and motivates us to go out and for the day.
And perhaps it goes even a step further in saying, here's what the company's most important goal is, and then a question on the bottom of it: what's your most important goal? Right? Because remember what I said is, no matter where I am in the organization, I can contribute to achieving the most important goal. So my most important goal is that contribution.
Okay.
Right. And it might be nothing more than, I'm a fork truck driver on the shop floor, right? to get X number of lines picked in a day or deliveries made in a day. It might be something as simple, and we call this cascading objectives down through the organization. It might be something like making sure that I always get back to a customer within 24 hours. So everybody in the organization can define a contribution to the company's most important goal.
Okay. So when they talk about an entrepreneurial spirit or mindset, even as an employee, is that part of what we're trying to get to in your strategy?
Right. When you make me part of the how, right, and give me the freedom to help develop that, right, that enables me, empowers me,
yes,
to do more things or better things in the organization in terms of my contribution to it.
Okay, because I own this piece of the personal ownership. So and I wanted to say, about your book. Your book was just recently published, but it brings with it, years of experience and expertise, and I think that's awesome. So I want to make sure people plug into your book. So where can we find your book?
So it's on Amazon.
Okay.
If you just type in Strategy Realized and on Amazon, it'll take you to it. It's in both hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. Cool. But if you want to learn much more about it, and you obviously can click on the cover and read the preface and some of the reviews and those kinds of things.
Okay.
But if you want some more insight, the website for the book is strategyrealized.com. And there's video excerpt, there's videos, there's workshops, there's resources that you can download. I mean, this is, so what is this book about? This book is about creating one most important goal and pointing everything you do in a business toward that goal.
Okay.
It really is that simple. And I actually have on the website a workbook if you want to create your own unique business hierarchy of needs.
Okay.
Because every business is unique. Right? You can download a worksheet and give it a shot on your own. So or obviously you can call me and we can have a conversation about the steps that you go through, right?
Right.
I'm being careful because what I want to do is share a concept and not sell.
Okay. Awesome.
Not have anyone think that this is all about selling Jim Gitney or the book, right?
Right. But the information that's contained in the book is definitely going to help us. But go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So, I think it's all, Audrey, success inside. The difference between a good company and a company that does really, really well is how well they communicate and aggregate strategy throughout the organization, objectives throughout the organization. 80% of strategies don't deliver their intended results. 60% of CEOs say their team doesn't do a good job of implementing strategy. And owners of small companies, I'm going to say sub $30 million a year companies, all right, have a difficult time, struggle with how to significantly accelerate growth in their organization or how to significantly improve profitability. And so even for small organizations, they still do all the 29 elements in the business hierarchy of needs, but they have the way they do it and how they prioritize it is different. Because it's obviously much more complex in a large organization. It's much more simplistic in a smaller organization. But I think if your listeners think, if we think about this a little bit further, right? Most self-help books that you read are all about establishing a goal for yourself, whether it be running a marathon, whether it be weight loss, whether it be stop smoking or whatever. You have to set that one most important, that goal, And you have to build activities or strategies around achieving it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because we talk about Maslow, we talk about all these self-help books. Think of Strategy Realize, the business hierarchy of needs, a self-help book for business.
Yes.
It could be not-for-profits as well. It could be for church groups. Anytime you have an organization of people who are dedicated to something, they really need to go through this type of process.
That makes sense. Because we have to learn how to communicate that strategy. It boils down to that, because employees are not mind readers, and so we need to understand.
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so, Audrey.
Why did you do it like that? Well, if you wanted me to do it that way, I would have done it. And so that kind of leads me to sustainable continuous improvement. When you talk about that, explain, about that, because sometimes we've always done it this way. I know that's kind of like a packed statement, or why should we change it? It ain't broke. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, so to speak.
Yeah, so that is a fabulous question. The reason that many companies fail at continuous improvement or at sustainability is because they don't engage their stakeholders, their employees, in the how. Remember what I said?
Back to that.
I'm going right back to that. I'm going to start becoming a broken record here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me from what to what by when. Now, I'm the type of individual that you just need, if you tell me that, just leave me alone and I'll go get it done, right?
Okay.
No, all of us aren't that way.
Yes.
But we all want to be part of the how. And so continuous improvement is about continuously engaging people in the how and how to improve something. Now, when you have a most important goal, and no matter what that goal is, and you understand what it is, and you engage me in the how, right? That, right, in my opinion, is continuous improvement.
Okay.
Okay. It's interesting. When I was running Black & Decker's appliance factory in North Carolina, this was many years ago, I had 2,000 people.
Wow.
And we were implementing total quality management, which I had created as part of a team for Black & Decker worldwide prior to becoming the general manager of this facility. And so, we always struggle with, how do I get more people involved and how do I get more resources to implement this new initiative, right? And your initial first thought is, I'm going to go ask the boss for 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 new people who are going to do continuous improvement, which is exactly the wrong way to approach it. So what we did was we did a survey of the 2,000 people, and it wasn't mandatory. And we asked them, what other things do they do? And what we found was that we had people with PhDs, we had people with master's degrees, we had people with bachelor's and 2-year degrees. We had people who built computer systems, built race cars, did all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Okay. And they weren't sitting on the shop floor doing the same thing every 30 seconds. And so we went to them and we said, hey, how would you like to take these skills, some of these skills that you have, and apply them to this initiative? And we just gave them a small bump. I mean, this wasn't like we raised their pay 50%, but we said, if you help us here, we'll compensate you this way.
Okay.
And we got 30 or 40 people in the organization who are now willing to be leaders of the continuous improvement efforts in their area.
Wow.
Right? Who are willing to become influencers inside the organization.
Okay.
And so one of the other reasons continuous improvement programs fail and sustainability fails is because most organizations do not properly leverage the skill sets they have in their business. Someone comes to me and says, Jim, your job is to drive this fork truck from point A to point B. You can tell I'm a manufacturing guy.
That's okay.
B, and you need to do it every 3.5 minutes, right?
Right.
Well, I can do that, but I might be able to do a lot more. And so what you say is, well, how can I leverage that?
Right.
How can we leverage that to improve the overall business? And so continuous improvement and sustainability is about, leveraging the resources in your organization and making people part of the how. You mentioned Kaizen
Yes.
for a moment. I've done over 200 Kaizen events.
Oh, wow.
Or been part of over 200 Kaizen events and led them. And of the 200 that we've done, only 2 failed to deliver incredibly great results, like significantly improved quality or significant reductions in inventory or significant reductions in cost. Now I'm going to contradict myself, because those 2 that failed, the teams, which were the process owners, the people who owned that process for that Kaizen event, were so dismayed that their recommendations didn't work and didn't deliver the results that they asked to do it again. And those 2 became the 2 best projects we ever did.
Wow.
And so when you sit and think about putting the power of a team of people who own something. So remember, I said, from what to what, I want to be led.
Yes.
I want to be part of the how. It applies to teams as well. Yeah. And the results are amazing. Let me share with you. I was fortunate as part of writing this book to get the Gallup organization, which is, this isn't numbers that Jim Gitney made up. This comes from Gallup.
Okay.
Highly engaged organizations can expect a 23% improvement in profitability. Chew on that for a minute.
Yeah.
18% improvement in productivity, a 66% improvement in well-being inside the organization. Now, we have a lot of people who talk about the Great Resignation and, productivity and, not being in, work from home and being isolated from your team. And so, turnover, when you're in a situation where people are dissatisfied, they don't feel like they're part of the organization, they are not engaged completely, right? We're not paying attention to a huge problem. And as difficult as it is to find people, we certainly would like to see a 43% improvement in turnover, right?
Right.
I didn't make these numbers up. So by following the business hierarchy of needs and engaging everybody in the organization to achieve the most important number, we address these kinds of issues and have this kind of opportunity to improve the performance of the business.
Look, I'm kind of like stumped for words, right there. But that's important though, and I just love this business hierarchy of needs. And if every owner, because it's owners and the C-suite, we have to have the mindset that the people, so to speak, have the mental capacity, the wherewithal, even the desire to contribute at a level to help us improve, or to want to see the company successful. Because if the company's successful, then we're successful, and then you have the built-in incentives, or like you said, being making us part of the how. I think that that would take all of our organizations a lot further, faster, or either just longer. Let's put it that way, because you don't want to rush anything, but and everything has a process to it. So Jim, this has been very enlightening. I love what you're doing, and the information that you're able to to share with us, as business owners, especially young business owners. And I don't mean young in the personal ages, but maybe business, the actual age of the company, or as entrepreneurs looking to go into more of a business ownership where they have employees around them, and bringing and engaging them in with the core values and the vision. And then taking advantage of that, like you said, leveraging those relationships with employees to be part of the how. So I want to give you the last word for any advice to our listening audience.
there has been some feedback on the book about the business hierarchy of needs being too complex. 29 elements. Oh my. The reality is that if someone attempts to utilize the business hierarchy of needs, right, they need to recognize a couple of things. Number one is that they do all of the things inside the business hierarchy of needs.
Wow.
Every business has to do it. Every business does it, whether they want to recognize it or not. What we're talking about is pointing everything they do toward one most important goal, right? And if a leader of a company, or even just an organization inside of a company, or an individual contributor, a young person starting in their career, takes the perspective of, if I use one most important goal to drive everything I do, and I ask the question when someone comes to me or we're dealing with a problem, how does this move us toward our most important goal, or what do we need to get there? All of the elements of the business hierarchy of needs immediately start to line up, right? So if someone believes that in order to create and implement their own, address their own business hierarchy of needs, that they need to have 29 different projects, they're missing the point. All right. What I tell people is create your most important goal, and then start engaging people in your organization around the conversation on how to get there. Okay. All of the other elements inside the business hierarchy of needs will fall into alignment. So that's my last word on this. At the end of the day, it's really not more complicated than that.
Well, thanks again, Jim Gitney, for being part of the Business Shop today. We had some awesome conversation around strategy and getting results. So folks, again, plug into to Jim at strategyrealized.com for more information, and as well as to purchase his book and really delve into that. And of course, if you want to bring him in for consulting, that would be great. So thanks again, Jim, and we'll see everyone next time on the next episode of The Business Shop.
Thank you for listening to The Business Shop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest, and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businessshop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.